Welcome to Bible Over Brews. Deep thoughts from it over time and text. I'm coming at you, Aaron Crew, choose for Vorka, and I've got Keith.
This mood lighting has got me turned on. To talk about news.
And I've got Gumby.
Yeah, you got me. You always got me. You had me at hello.
We've got plenty to talk about tonight. It's a news episode. However, we're starting with rum and coke. So, delicious, delicioso, yum yum. We're actually using Cruzan. So, Cruzan is a blend of rums and onto 4 years and ex-bourbon barrels and filtered for full-bodied taste. Light in color, this classic showcase, the smooth flavor of Cruzan is known for. So, gents, cheers.
Cheers. Cruzan.
Is this our first rum and coke ever on the
This is
show?
our first rum and coke ever.
Wow.
I know.
It's like losing our second.
Just lost.
I'll be quiet. I'll save that for after dark.
That's right. This is, again, delicious. I actually haven't had Cruzan in quite a while. But it's a pleasantly smooth rum. If you contrast it a little bit with Bacardi, I think it has a slightly smokier flavor to it, which is pleasant.
Yeah,
I enjoy that.
I like it.
That goes really well with Coke. Like, usually I just get one of those, like, harsh, cheap rums that just, like, you like it because it's alcohol and it's in Coke, but that's about it. And this actually, like, complements the Coke.
Well, it's because Cruzan, beginning in 1760 with the establishment of the land we make our rum in today, the estate Diamond, the island of St. Croix, and generations of the Northrop family have influenced each flavor and left their mark on every barrel and batch, from everyone who shows up to run their distillery to the island they call their home. The rum is named for the people and the place that made it all possible.
We thank you, the Northrop family.
Right? Yeah. Again, it's I find it to be a pleasant rum. Has a little more, I think, flavor than some of your lower brands, even than some of your higher brands. But yeah, there you go. Cruzan. Keith, what you up to?
Oh, gosh, what am I up to? Good question. Kind of just been kid crap, you know. Actually, speaking of kid crap, my kid's been crapping everywhere because he's potty training.
Some of the best times ever. Yeah.
Let's see where I've been trying to see how long I can put off finally replacing the family minivan. So it has this nice like knock in it. Like every time you turn the steering wheel, it goes donk. Like you can hear the strut just giving out. But I keep telling myself, I have this like mental map in my head where if it gets over 230,000 miles, that's where I replaced that one belt you were supposed to replace at 100,000 miles, but nobody actually did was 100,000 miles ago, 130. So then I'm like, oh, we're officially on borrowed time. If I can get from 229.4 to 230, and then finally maybe in like June, I keep counting like, you know, if I get 8 more fills of the tank, I have justified my purchase. I've used the new tires that are on it long enough.
Yep.
I've worked through the last oil change. Like I'm not replacing the car mid-cycle of the oil change, and then I can finally go drop an outrageous amount of money because I've never spent more than $5,000 on a car, and that's not going to happen this time. It's scary as hell.
It's a slippery slope. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then once you hit that 230, 250, isn't it? It's right around the corner, right?
What will that clomp sound like? It'll just be like you'll just turn the wheel and just like donk, 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 donk.
Yeah, pretty soon the van won't turn
It's
left
starting
at
to
all
do, like,
anymore. You
curse-
can only turn right.
Yeah, it's starting to do curse things too, whereas like something will happen to my wife in the car and like then I'll try it and it'll be fine. Like she says like she couldn't turn it right the other day, and like she might be right, but I couldn't do it. Like, and is it gonna ever happen to me? Or so that's a little nerve wracking. But
Yeah, I hate vehicles, man.
yeah, that's why we only have one.
So much work. So much work. I will say I've had good luck with my Japanese vehicles. They last forever. Um,
They do, even without oil.
yeah,
I don't know what the hell they do.
It's kind of like the like little mini like nice car prison though, because like we've had a Toyota Sienna and we feel like we have to replace it with another Toyota Sienna. And guess what? There is a global shortage of right now. Toyota Siennas.
They're a great minivan for sure.
yeah, yeah. I had a Toyota Corolla years and years and years and years ago. It was 1985, and I ran that thing so long, it turned over at 500,000 miles,
Oh,
and it was
that's
still going
impressive.
perfect.
Wow.
Somebody still bought it. They were like, "Now will you sell it to me?" I was like, "All right, fine, it's yours."
Yeah, yeah. They are tanks for sure, man. I don't know what they do. My son brought me his Honda one time. He's like, Dad, it won't accelerate much anymore. It's very just rough. Like, all right, well, let's take a look under the old hood and, start getting levels. Like, oh, you have no oil in this thing. None.
Oh my!
And I know I did an oil change, like, I don't know, like the prior summer. Or not that long ago, the summer right before the season, but there was none. And it just kept going. As soon as you put oil back in, it was like, ah.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I had
Coke.
right.
Oh,
I've had so many of my cars. I've owned several Japanese cars, and they keep going and going and going. I had a Subaru. I finally just sold to my friend who kept asking for it, just because it wouldn't die.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Like 280,000 miles, just wouldn't die. It just kept going and going, stronger than ever. 280,000 miles, and it showed no sign of slowing down.
Nice.
So he's like, I'll give you like almost $1,000. I was like, I'll take it.
Yep.
My favorite car was a Subaru Legacy, and we had to get a minivan because we had too many kids, but we had to give it away early too because we would have had to put a bunch of money in because the car ran perfectly. But the late 90s, they had issues with the gas tanks and the fuel filler necks rusting out. So like we had the neck down to the gas tank pieced together with like epoxy everywhere. Like it was just being held by, it was just a bunch of rust and epoxy. And then finally, once that was working correctly, it started leaking gas again because, guess what? The gas tank, the bolts under the gas tank, everything's rusting through right there. And you have to like take half the car apart to take out the gas tank.
Of course.
So then we gave it away for like $500.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
That's why we drink.
Gumby, anything new with you?
Music. Making music. Still doing worship. Studio stuff. Producing. Yeah, that's it. And family life.
Sweet. I had took 5 fighters down to the Arnold Sports Festival last week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it went pretty well. So we had out of the 5, we had 1 scrimmage. So she was there to just up her game, and she's never fought before. So scrimmage was a really good opener for her to figure out. She wants to be able to use it for self-defense, of course, if she ever gets into a confrontation. She did great. She fought 3 times, so it went really well. We had another guy. 2 of our guys lost, but they actually did really well. Did better than expected, so we were very happy with their performances. One of our guys fought 3 times. So he fought 2 times on the first day, 1 time on the last day. Lost on just points, but oh my Lord, what a beast. He powered through those guys, and he's like a human calculator. Like, you could see him mentally picking his guys apart as he was fighting them. And it was just really fun to watch. Just insanely fun to watch. And then the last guy is a beast. And, like, he demolished his first opponent and then just knocked his second opponent out. Well, they threw the towel in. Because he came at them like a slab of concrete. Which is why I call him granite for his fight.
How many rounds are there?
These were 3 rounds.
Okay.
These were 3 rounds. If you went up to the big finisher on A class, there would have been 5 rounds. So, but none of these guys were currently fighting A class.
That many fights, man. That seems like a lot on your body, though.
It can be.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, those 2 fighters that fought so well, they actually walked away without any damage at all. So,
It's a win.
a win on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, afterwards, neither one of them looked like they had been touched.
Wow.
I look like I've been like beat the crap out of when I just like take my kids to like something.
Right. We're carpooling, man.
Yeah, it's carpooling.
We're whooped.
Going to school, taking my kids to school beats the
Nice.
crap out of me.
Need to get back to bed.
So Keith,
Oh man,
what's going on with this whole Church Militant thing?
I don't even know where to start. So, I mean, Church Militant, what is Church Militant? We should probably start with that because not everybody might know.
That is true.
Yeah, I need help with that.
That's true. Many people probably don't, especially on the evangelical side.
Mm-hmm.
I could try describing it first and you can augment.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So Church Militant is a website, I guess they would call it an apostolate, a digital apostolate. So it's like this far right, but not the farthest right Catholic
True.
website. And it's run out of a suburb of Detroit, I believe. It was previously called St. Michael's Media, and it pitches itself as this like true carrier of the true Catholic faith. So for years, under the headship of Michael Voris, who's been their chief personality, CEO, whatever the heck he's been called, they've done video content. They've done this website, churchmilitant.com. They've run conferences, and they've just been this kind of touch point in far-right Catholic circles, often criticizing the Pope, criticizing bishops, doing, kind of picking off in these, their homepage would often have these little like things that would be like, oh, here's a very local like nit to pick about someone's bishop that maybe you would only get in like that like region. And often it would be like something around Detroit because that's what they would have the most privy to. But then it would become this national thing where everybody would be in the com box and being like, oh my gosh, that guy is such a liberal squish. He's woke. He's part of the Lavender Mafia, which is this, supposed cabal of gay priests and bishops that are
Lavender Mafia.
Yes, that is a chief term that they use a lot.
That is a
'cause
first
that was-
for me. Wow.
That was one of their biggest bugaboos with this conspiracy that the priesthood and the bishop ranks were overrun with gay people, and that was causing the corruption of the church. How am I doing so far?
Mafia.
Yeah. So far, you're spot on.
That's how you really feel, Keith.
Well, I mean, there's other personalities that actually played on the Lavender Mafia, as you know, a certain doctor, somebody we'll maybe bring up later. But he played off of that idea of the Lavender Mafia.
Doctor Who? Is it a Catholic? Oh,
So,
I forgot he was a doctor.
yeah.
Wait, why aren't we saying his name, or are we just going to say his name later?
We could
We've
say
said his name before.
we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to do it or you to do it?
So the Dr. Taylor Marshall also played off of the whole Lavender Mafia
Oh,
thing
yeah.
and the conspiracy theories that surround that. And
So is this like the QAnon type thing?
the QAnon.
Yeah.
So
Much with that?
I think it does play onto part of it. Not maybe as fully as the whole conspiracy theory side of it, but more on the how do we put this gently?
And the overlap might be conspiracies about groups of pedophiles,
Yeah.
because like QAnon is about like the
Pizzagate type of
government
thing.
has been overrun with pedophiles. They're trying to eat children,
Yeah.
while like Church Militant and like the idea of the Lavender Mafia is about like the priesthood has been overrun with gay people, and that the gay people are the pedophiles, and that's the source of the sexual abuse scandal in the Catholic Church, which is the downfall of the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to completely like they did believe what they're doing was correct. So I really don't want to go in
Who did?
Church Militant.
Okay.
So really, I think a lot of I actually know a couple of people that went into work there. I really do believe that they thought they were doing the right thing and had the right frame of mind from their background. So in what they thought they were doing, I really do think they believe they're doing the right thing. So I don't want to say that there are a bunch of evil people. In their minds, they're doing the right thing, but it does cause some division and it does cause some hurt in the body. So
Is that their whole premise? Is that their whole spiel? Is that it's the Lavender Mafia, though?
there's a lot of that.
I mean, it's a manifestation of the broader culture wars. So there's this pattern has been repeated in a bunch of different ways, catering to different audiences.
Mhm.
This is the one that happened to cater to rad trad Catholic audiences, but not the raddest of the traddest, which is interesting, which we
true.
should get into later.
That's true.
And I'm just blown away by that. I've never heard that term before.
Which one? Red Tread or Lavender Mafia?
No, Lavender Mafia.
I
Wow.
almost feel bad for using it because I mean it's their term, but I mean it's how they would describe it.
Yeah.
And it's I think when you try to describe a conspiracy theory, using their term is probably the best way because trying to actually describe it would lend more legitimacy to it. Because it sounds kind of silly when you talk about a lavender mafia.
And really, I think it discredits the color lavender, which this presentation is brought to you from.
Beautiful color.
Sorry, that was my inner Sesame Street.
So we should say what happened, probably, right?
Yeah, probably.
All right, so oh gosh, I could get believe it was about 3 months ago. So was it like November, December? That Michael Voris, who's been the face of Church Militant for
The Vortex.
he even had this big show was called The Vortex.
Yep.
He announced that due to some unspecified moral failings, he was leaving the ministry. It was this very rambly, like 15-minute video confessional, and he's like, "Please pray for me. I've had moral failings, but I'm getting to a better place. Something, something, something. Then the board of directors has decided that I should step down, but Church Militant will continue. Please supporting them." So that happened right out of the bat. As soon as he said vague moral failings, and actually a week before that, Christine Niles, who was like the other face, like the number 2 in terms of like, actual people who appeared online, she had already resigned, and she put out a video that said that she had seen a pattern of, like lack of focus, like focusing on the wrong things. She had noted, she said she would not go into what the moral failings were.
Yeah.
But she did say that her big warning was that for the past few years, Boris hadn't been praying with the staff. And that was like, her video was again very vague. A few days after that, or maybe a week, I don't know, David Gordon, who was another personality / employee there, and you might remember that name because he's the brother of Timothy Gordon, who does the Rules for Retrograde podcast, which is another far right Catholic thing, and that's the one that gets very into like trad wifery and all that stuff. So that's a whole nother can of worms to open up. But he's the other part of that, David Gordon. He put out his own confessional video describing how he had, I think he got fired. But I think he went into more details about the moral transgressions, but I don't actually know because I can't find his video anymore. And when I first started watching it, I just got so bored because he rambles on forever and ever and ever. So then fast forward a few months, we get to the point where now they announce that they are shutting down. And
Sure.
to understand, yes.
Okay.
And also in part of this, I forget if they fired or they lost, but I think most of their workforce left in all of this in some way. But going back at least a year or two before that, they were actually in a libel or a defamation lawsuit with
It's defamation.
yeah, maybe you should just read this part.
So, Church Militant, the far-right Catholic media network, will cease operating at the end of April, according to a press release issued March 1st by the law firm Todd & Weld, LLP. The law firm announced that Church Militant, operated by St. Michael's Media, had lost a defamation lawsuit to the Reverend George Delaire, a canon lawyer and priest in the Diocese of Manchester, New Hampshire. Church Militant agreed to pay $500,000 and apologize to Delaire, said the law firm, which represents Delaire. On January 17, 2019, Church Militant published an anonymously written story titled N.H. Vicar Changes Dogma into Heresy about Delaire. After Delaire sued the outlet for defamation, the author of the article was revealed to be Mark Balestri, I think I pronounced that right, a canon lawyer who was representing a client in a dispute where Delaire was representing the Diocese of Manchester. In that dispute, the Diocese of Manchester had accused the St. Benedict Center in Richmond, New Hampshire, of violating canon law, according to Todd and Weld. The St. Benedict Center and its members, who call themselves Slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, have promoted the position held by their founder, a Jesuit priest named Leonard Feeney, that salvation is only possible through the Catholic Church. Feeney, who died in 1978, was excommunicated for this view, though he was later reconciled to the Church. The Southern Poverty Law Center also added the center to a list of hate groups in 2007 for its members' anti-Semitic beliefs. In 2019, the Diocese of Manchester forbade Catholics from participating in activities with the center and the center from calling itself Catholic because they said that they had warned the group that their position is contrary to Vatican teaching. The law firm alleges that Balestri used his article to, quote, discredit Father Delaire and the diocese, the law for, and to raise funds, close quote, some of which would go to pay for Balestri's legal work. And after he was sued for defamation, Balestri did not appear to defend himself, nor did he appear for a deposition, according to both Church Militant and Todd Weld. For his article, Balestri claimed to have talked with anonymous sources who alleged made negative personal and professional comments about Delaire, but Church Militant and Balestri never identified any sources who said anything negative about Delaire. So that's the defamation that came about.
Wow.
So basically, there was a long pattern of Church Militant basically doing libel, defamation, making these outrageous statements about bishops or priests or whoever that went a little bit left of where they would like to be, and one of them finally decided to call them out about it in court, and that was enough to jeopardize the entire company, as in a lot of cases it would be.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they had a long pattern of doing this with like the most infamous example was around the times of like the Black Lives Matter protests, which was around the time that Archbishop Wilton Gregory of Washington, D.C. became an archbishop, and they called him a quote-unquote African queen. So number one, bringing up race. Number two, this is hearkening back to the aforementioned Lavender Mafia by implying that the archbishop is gay. Like, this was probably their most infamous, like, in terms of like media exposure, like libelous statement they offered about somebody, or just slanderous thing, I guess would be the more precise word. And actually, their own diocese, the Diocese of Detroit, actually called out to like remind people that they're not associated with Church Militant as a result of that particular statement.
That's pretty wild. What were his quote unquote moral failings? Did he confess?
So that's a bit disputed back and forth, but it's claimed that there was insinuations towards he possibly may have approached some people about his homosexual tendencies
It's all about gay stuff.
at the workplace.
Oh, wow.
And that there were a series of shirtless pictures that were turning up inside their Dropbox account. So again, these are alleged. I haven't seen any pictures. I haven't seen anything.
You were going looking for
I haven't
pictures of Michael Boris's
no,
hot, sexy, hairy chest.
I was not. It's alleged.
Hey, Siri.
I have not gone and fished for any of those. Frankly, I don't want to see them. But but it is alleged that
I'm a
these
little intrigued, I
things.
admit.
It is alleged that these things did turn up in the Dropbox account, and that certain people in his group were approached about
Hmm.
things.
So I guess I'm just trying to wrap my mind around not the images, but is that part of the reason, or is it mostly due to just them being sued?
I think I think you're looking at a combination
Everything.
of events. Yeah.
Okay.
And even then, it's one of those things where I don't wish Michael Flores any ill will. I actually hope he's able to battle with his inner demons, come to salvation. Whatever he's having issues with internally with himself, I really wish him the best. And I hope he comes around to whatever he's struggling with. It may be more than that. Who knows? I know he has a bodybuilding background, and there's a series of different things you use in bodybuilding that could be harmful to your system. So there could be some of that stuff that's at play as well. I don't know. It's very vague. I just we do wish him the best. I hope he comes around to whatever is plaguing him. So.
There has been this, like, the entire history of Church Militant is wrapped up into its perspective on homosexuality. So Michael Voris, like years ago, it came out that he was gay, or at least maybe he is gay. Who knows? He was previously gay and embracing it in terms of doing gay stuff. And then later on in his, conversion or whatever you would call it, he was no longer doing gay stuff. And then he was running St. Michael's, and that years into the ministry,
I didn't know
came
that.
out, and that he did receive some backlash for that. I was like, oh my gosh, how could, the raddest of the rad trads will be like, oh my gosh, once you've been gay or done gay stuff, you couldn't possibly lead this kind of ministry. And, which is, I would say, a pretty unfair thing to say. So it's been wrapped up in that way. And I think that has probably fueled his crusade against homosexuality through Church Militant, which is manifested in promoting this conspiracy or lie about that the sexual abuse crisis was caused by gay people. One of the legacies of Church Militant, I think, in my mind, is spreading this idea that homosexuality causes pedophilia, and pedophilia causes sex. Obviously, pedophilia is what's involved with the sex abuse scandal, but they would cite these false studies or misrepresent conclusions that would say that the abusers in the church were homosexual, and that's why they were pedophiles, as opposed to treating what we actually know about pedophilia, that gay people are not more likely than straight people to commit pedophilia.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do about your orientation.
No, that's true. It's
very interesting. I didn't know that about his background.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's
Podcast, but
yeah. No, there's definitely there's several studies that have been done on that, and pedophilia is its own thing. It doesn't relate to homosexuality or heterosexuality. It's definitely its own thing.
that's true. And we definitely know it's bipartisan here in the U.S. So
Yeah. It's yeah. But yeah, so that's where that falls. Which is, I mean, that
So-
now Church Militant's going, they're closing their doors.
if that is the case, then maybe he struggled with his past, right?
Yeah.
And trying to repress it, he was being hypocritical, and trying to go, have the door swing the other way, so to speak. Just sounds like there was no grace in his life at that point.
I think there's a lot of that comes out. Like some folks who have, been, whether it's internally, like they've acknowledged that they are attracted to the same gender, or they actually were, out gay in the past, and then they convert. They are often some of the most strident folks who are against, gay people and participating in the church and are calling that out. And you wonder if some of that is at play. I feel like a weird thing as the whole news was coming out for me is all these people would be like, replying to his Twitter post with his confession video or whatever, and saying like, man, I hope you, take care of whatever is plaguing you. And like, I would be sitting here thinking like, well, I hope you get better. But if you think what needs to get better about you is that you're gay and you need not be gay, I hope you get past that feeling, because I feel like that's not going to lead you anywhere good. I think that is that push and pull. I personally see like that push and pull of like, oh, my religion tells me I can't be this way, but I feel this way, is kind of the heart of like, it's kind of showing that we aren't meant to struggle in this way. We aren't meant to fight. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I want to say it's okay to, like Michael Voris, it's okay to be gay is what I want to say to Michael Voris. And I pray you get in a good spot, but I pray that good spot doesn't involve you once again repressing whoever you're actually meant to be.
Yeah, it's again, he was so vague about it. It could be anything. It could have even been drug use from the bodybuilding side. We have no idea. It was so vague that we have no idea. Yeah.
And apparently David Gordon said something more about it, but I can't even figure out what it was, because he's just. And this is what's the other thing that's more interesting is like the people who like say call them out on this. Like, it's if you were to go on like the Reddit, like, you know, like who's the asshole thread on Reddit, and they have different abbreviations, and one of them is everybody sucks here, ESH, and I'm like, whenever I hear anybody in the inside talk about Church Militant, my mind immediately goes ESH. Everybody sucks here. 'Cause like everybody who was calling out, like probably the most pure, like in terms of like intentions folks on there were folks who were deeply invested in this like call to like representing Catholic Orthodoxy, but also very much in the context of like squashing gay people. So like that's David Gordon, for instance. He is whenever you hear him in an interview, he's talking about like, you know, I thought we were doing too much Pope bashing and even possibly too much bishop bashing, but like I am here to represent Catholic Orthodoxy, and to me Catholic Orthodoxy means we have to stamp out any hint of LGBTQ inclusion in the church. And that's what he repeats over and over. And like, that's part of his like motivation in like speaking out against Michael Voris, is saying that like, he was worried that if they were just like kind of shoved it under the rug, had him resign, but maybe like restored him a few years later, like David Gordon is saying that his homosexuality was such a problem that he should never be allowed to return to leadership or even really participation at Church Militant, simply on the count of being gay. And so that like that's where I'm like, these guys are like the true believers are commendable for their true belief, but I also find their true belief abhorrent and contributing to the problem, even if they have the best of intentions.
Well, yeah. Again, we wish him the best, and I really don't think that people, and I can't speak for everybody that was at Church Militant, but I know a few people that had interned there, and they really did have best interest, I believe, at heart, especially considering the backgrounds they came from. So I don't wish any ill will towards any of them, and I hope them the best, however they restructure that. I just hope that they have a good journey. It's a new journey of discovery for them. You know, as the doors close on Church Militant, I hope that opens up something fresh for them, you know, and helps them on their journey.
And this is a good question: is who are the doors opening towards? Because like, I think one thing interesting about Church Militant is like in the intervening time, it was a pioneer in this sort of Catholic media, but that's been a decade or more. And now,
have they been around that long?
I can't remember when they started, but it's been at least a decade, I'm sure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like, it's
easily.
probably more than that,
Easily.
maybe 15 years or more.
Yeah, easily.
But they like, you know, you think of like the Matt Frads, or even like Jason Everett, who is a chastity speaker, Catholic chastity speaker. He's got top billing on like the Prayer Breakfast for Trump or something like that now. And he's also like one of the headliners for the Eucharistic Congress. Is that this summer? Oh God, that's this summer, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Oh man, I don't know. But like there's all these things happening in a lot of ways, like the YouTube influencer stuff, media stuff for Catholics has caught up to where evangelicals have been for really decades. So like all of these people who are not at Church Militant anymore, if they wanted to continue at least the culture war side of it, they probably could find something to do.
I'm not familiar with you said Eucharistic breakfast or
I mixed. There's two things in there. Well, so Jason Everett, what came out like recently, he was on a poster for, it was like Catholics for Trump. That's what it was.
okay.
So he was probably the most like previously considered normie person. Like everybody else on there was like Jack Posobiec, Michael Flynn. And then it was Jason Everett, like the only guy who probably actually regularly talks to like Catholics who are downloading stuff or listening to the radio to like learn about their faith.
Okay.
But like there was that. There was, of course, like the Eucharistic revival thing. Remember that? Like the U.S. We talked about that like at least a year ago.
Well, I'm a firm believer, even because of science of the Eucharistic revival.
Well, I'm talking about the specific event that's happening in the U.S. Like they allocated like $20 million. Like it was like remember we were talking about
Gotcha.
The whole like the bishops against Biden. That was probably a couple years ago now.
Yeah,
and their response was like a mealy mouth statement against Biden, but then to also spend like $26 million to have a big party in Indianapolis to promote.
Yeah, that's different. That's different.
Reverence of the Eucharist.
That's different. I'm firmly against the church getting behind and supporting different political entities. I really think we need to separate that because it just creates a division inside the church itself. So I really think that the church needs to step away. For those people who do, many don't, but for those people who do step into that arena and say, hey, look at this political entity or that, that's, I think, always going to end poorly. And that's because you are dividing your body, you're dividing your church, you're dividing your flock.
Mm-hmm.
I think that every priest, pastor, bishop, you name it, needs to step away from the political party and say, hey, we're the church. Here's the things we believe.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Seems unlikely, but it'd be nice. Oh, sorry. Oh,
No, you're good.
Yeah, the one other thing I wanted to talk about Church Militant that I thought was interesting was like that I kind of alluded to, however, so I feel bad if we don't talk about it, was that although they are very far right, they are not the farthest right. And
Pray tell.
It's one of those situations where it's not like just like, oh, if you really look into it, but they've had open fights with people to the right of them. They have taken the left position, if there was one, many times. One of the examples is, I mean, like in terms of actually, they actually have done work that's probably have some positive aspect in terms of calling out the sexual abuse scandal. So they've been the most outspoken against the sexual abuse scandal in the SSPX, the Society of St. Pius X, which is like some people call it schismatic, some people call it like not in regular communion. I don't really even know what they call it.
They're completely out of communion. They're Sadovacanist. If you're a Sadovacanist,
exactly.
You're not in communion.
They're people who don't believe the current pope is the pope.
Yeah.
But they've also been rife with abuse, and they have called that out. They were in a fight in recent years with restoring the faith media, and particularly the leader of that was a guy named Mike Parrott. He's still named Mike Parrott. And he first came to prominence, at least in terms of Church Militant calling him out, because he was organizing this large fundraiser for a priest who was arrested for unquestionably being a pedophile, like gigabytes and gigabytes, maybe terabytes of like child porn on hard drives. The hard evidence was there, and this guy was out hosting a fundraiser for him. So they were in this big fight. I think there was actually lawsuits involved. They were, of course, coming down on the side of maybe not, of course, but they were coming on the side of like, this just because this guy is a rad trad doesn't mean we're going to defend him. He's clearly doing something shady here. So they were very devoted to going after people who were enabling abuse. And this person was enabling abuse, even if they would agree with them in other cases and other matters. And like this fight got really weird. There was at one point where Church Militant was tweeting, and I think quite accurately, that there was photographic evidence of Mike Parrott beating a possum to death on his porch. Like, that's how weird this got.
What?
Yes. Like this is the level of back and forth on like Twitter or X, as we now call it.
Why?
Yeah,
I don't
get it.
what's
Like
the context.
yeah, exactly. There was no context other than this guy is a bad dude. And it, like, the folks that they were fighting with on the right are like the kind of people like you and I probably, I'm not going to say anybody's name, but like you and I probably actually know one of the people where some of these same people have like tried to pick fights with them. And it's like someone who's very conservative, but like isn't like nearly as crazy as Mike Parrott. And like, that's the level of like just this infighting involved, between the raddest of the trads and the rad trads.
That's pretty interesting. That's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
Way.
Wow.
Way. Good Lord. Good night.
I mean, because they were certainly right to call that dude out. You know, if it's a actual, completely factual situation and hard evidence and all of that. Good Lord. I mean.
So if you have a right of right, is that like a blacker shade of white? Left of right? It's like an oxymoron, right? So if you're right of right, it's like a blacker shade of white.
I know. I don't like the whole two paradigm thing. That there's only left and right, and
in all of this, like actually, like I participate a lot in like left wing Catholic Twitter, and in this whole in this whole like Church Militant kerfuffle, they've been like, I feel like they've held their fire for the most part, because like it kind of already speaks to itself. You're like, Church Militant has already like stepped in it. Like you don't need to like beat the horse while it's down. And also like some of the people who have gloated in their demise have been people that the leftiest of left people would find far more abhorrent than even Church Militant.
I think to your earlier point, there's always going to be an avenue for people in Church Militant or for people who think like that to become involved in an organization like that.
Yeah.
So
that's what we appreciate, though, Keith. We appreciate having different views on the podcast. So that's
honestly, it would be tremendously interesting to have, especially a true believer from Church Militant on the podcast. I was just gonna say a comment on that line. Like, you were just making me think, even though there probably is a broad path forward for them to like work with different organizations, for a certain type of person who was at Church Militant, who was very pro Catholic magisterium, but very much wanted to, adhere to this very conservative, rigid view, there might only be a narrow path, if one at all, because everything has kind of gone to the culture wars. Like, and that's like what David Gordon, for all his faults, and I don't think very highly of his views, he was saying is that he didn't want necessarily to fight the culture wars. Like, or maybe he wanted to fight some of them, but he didn't want to fight them at the cost of saying that the Pope is not the legitimate Pope.
Right.
So that view might be really narrow, because we see a lot of compromises, even in very mainstream Catholic media, where they're like, no, we're gonna go up to the line here and say that the Pope is, sucks, basically. And like, there were definitely people inside of Church Militant who felt uncomfortable with the level of, even if they didn't go to the level of a sedevantist or whatever you call it, to the level they called out the Pope.
Yeah.
even outside of the Pope, I mean, in a broader brush, in terms under the just the church, the Protestant church, and a lot of people who may feel like they're tackling sexual immorality within our country, there's always going to be something that they can find to attach on to.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So why it's considered right or left, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But the issue for me is, like, do we even believe as a body if there is sexual immorality anymore?
Yeah.
Or if there isn't?
Yeah. I mean, my problem with Church Militant, and I had actually written leaders about this previously. I'll leave them unnamed. But I'd actually written leaders about this because I was uncomfortable with them calling out the Holy Pontiff.
Yeah.
Because the matters I saw them bringing up, I didn't see. Like, and the things they were saying, I was like, that's completely, what you're saying is arbitrary. Because you're taking hearsay right now and you're claiming that that is for real. And you're claiming that this is a stance and that's an opinion. So it actually upset me. It actually upset me enough what was going on Church Militant when it came to demonizing the Pope, the Holy Father. I found it unfounded. And I thought myself that borders on defamation because they're taking him out of context, and I didn't appreciate that. And I did get good responses back, which was nice. However, I didn't like the way that they were approaching that because from what I've seen, I think the Pope is coming from a very good place. I think that he is honestly trying to do the right thing in the world, save as many souls as he can, and guide the church on its way the best he can and best he understands how. So I do enjoy what Pope Francis has done, and I believe the things he has done has helped me come over into the Catholic Church.
So you think the Pope is the Pope?
I do.
That's terrible.
So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, that's it right there. And let's get a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever wanted to train Muay Thai? Perhaps there's no gyms near you. Perhaps you work odd hours. Perhaps, like a few of us, you don't like germs. Whichever way it goes, you can train online with some of the best instructors from around the country, either live or in class with other students. Living Muay Thai gives you the chance to do all of this and much more. So jump into live classes and on demand right now. livingmuaythai.com.
Hey, it's Gumby here from Bible Over Brews. Are you looking to get some editing done in your podcast? Maybe you don't have the hours or time it takes to edit your content, but you still need to get it done. Maybe you need a customized track or a song for your podcast or your next project without having to worry about copyright issues. Well, look no further than soulworkmusic.com, where this footwork is done for you. I'll get that editing, post-production work done right for you, or create you that customized song that fits your project or podcast to help support your life's work. If this sounds like what you need, reach out to me at soulworkmusic.com. Again, that's soulworkmusic.com. And remember, there's nothing taboo over brew.
And we're back. So, Keith, about this whole funeral thing, what's going on?
Oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. So I'm still piecing together because there's like the Church Militant stuff. There was a bunch of different moving pieces at different points, but at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, there was a funeral held for a renowned transgender activist. Trying to get her name, Cecilia Gentili, who ministered to prostitutes, I believe, and they kind of, I guess it was a very, that community really got into it, I guess, so to speak.
Okay.
And later on, there was a whole like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this funeral had, here this person, should not be considered a Catholic in good standing. There was sacrilege at this funeral service, which I think it actually was not technically a mass because they kind of aborted the intention to have a mass at the beginning when they saw the crowd who was there. And St. Patrick's Cathedral actually later had a mass of reparations to quote unquote atone for the funeral.
Okay.
Trying to recall some of the things that happened inside the funeral itself. There was like I think a lot of it was in Spanish, but they did this kind of benediction. Esta gran punta, la Santa Cecilia, la madre de todas de las puntas, with that to say this great whore, Saint Cecilia, the mother of all whores. So they were.
I thought you were cursing at me when you said that. I was like, wow,
I was wondering what Guppy was going
I
to say.
haven't heard that called me in a long time.
How was that? How was his accent, Gubby?
Yeah. Been at least days since I've heard that.
So there was a lot of, I mean, I even in the most liberal, generous interpretation, there was a significant subversion of if you were just saying, hey, can we have a funeral mass for this baptized Catholic? And the priest said, sure, like what would generally happen if you just left it to its own devices.
Okay.
How am I doing so far?
Okay. So what you're saying is it was untamed.
Yes, maybe.
Okay. That's ouch.
Which means what?
Was there streamers?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Like people streaming it, or you mean streamers floating around? Okay, because streamer now means like, you know, like there's people watching on the internet.
Was there what were there ribbon dances? Yeah, I only saw a couple of glimpses of it, just highlights on YouTube. Honestly, when I first saw it, I didn't think it was even at a Catholic church. I thought it was like a Lutheran or something. Or so when I saw it, I
He
was
looks right at me when he says that.
Those Lutherans.
Lutherans. Oh,
Nice.
there's satire. When I saw it, I was like, I didn't realize it was actually at a Catholic parish because I just saw some highlights of it pass through, and I was like, you know, it's what Methodists will do. And when I found out the next day I was at a Catholic church, I was like, oh, that's not going to end well. Right. And yeah, and it didn't.
Is it over the top?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. So the thing is, when it comes to funerals, so there's a little bit different between a Protestant idea of what a church is and what a Catholic's idea of what a church is.
I was just at a Catholic funeral
Yeah,
for my stepfather, and I can tell you that was the most sacred thing I've ever been to.
that's what it's supposed
Absolutely beautiful.
to be. Yeah, there's supposed to be a sanctity of life. There's supposed to
Yeah.
be a sacredness, a solemn level of reverence.
Yeah.
And so it did get out of control. Well, from the highlights I saw, it looked a little out of control.
Mhm.
From what I saw, again, I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw the highlights, and from what I saw, I was like, it was a little disrespectful, a little disrespectful. So, but that's me coming from a predominantly conservative side. So, Keith.
Actually, I should have watched the video. I didn't realize there was video of it.
There is. I honestly, the first time I saw it, I thought it was I thought it was a music video.
A what? A music video?
I thought it was a
interesting.
music video.
That's awesome.
That's exactly how it came across. I thought for sure it was a music video. When I found out it wasn't, I was like, oh, no. It was, yeah. It wasn't, it was, yeah.
So a couple possibly disjointed thoughts come to my mind. Like first, when I heard it was St. Patrick's, like St. Patrick's has a bit of a history of being a focal point for activism. Like it's kind of almost like the first parish that you would go to in the US if you were trying to do something subversive. So you might remember St. Patrick's from an incident. How long ago was this? Was this 15 years? Oh no, this was 20 years ago. This was over 20 years ago. Oh wow. I feel old. Maybe remember Opie and Anthony?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. Radio Shock DJs. They live recorded from, I don't know if how much they actually recorded on the air, but they got some people to have sex in the pews at St. Patrick's. And that's actually what got Opie and Anthony kicked off of the air.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I remember that coming across, and I was Protestant then, and even then, I was thinking, oh no.
Wow. Cheap shot. Look, my standards were way lower then.
No. What I'm saying
Wasn't
is
even saved.
no. What I'm saying is as somebody who was very anti-Catholic, because I was anti-Catholic at the time.
Okay.
I was, and even me being anti-Catholic, I was like, oh, that's just not good. That's just not no. That's somebody who was against the Catholic Church.
Oh, that I've never heard of that. Yeah, that is
So when you like
okay.
when you do something like that at St. Patrick's, like even in my most like liberal permissive sense, I am like detecting that you intend to provoke.
Mhm.
And I don't doubt that there was some intent there. I think my personal opinion is like in the state that the Catholic Church and like especially United States Christendom as a whole is that provocation is necessary in some or many circumstances. I think that many messages, perspectives, and respect for different peoples like that will not get any airtime at all unless groups that have been aggrieved by the Catholic Church, like say the LGBTQ community, if they actually do provoke people, like that is necessary in order for the message.
52-year-old Cecilia.
I think the like there was a quote from is he still a bishop? Bishop Dolan? I guess once you're a bishop, you're always a bishop. Bishop Dolan, like used to be like the bishop or whatever, but Bishop Dolan of New York, he noted that, hey, if someone asks for a funeral mass for a baptized Catholic, we provide it. We don't ask you a million questions about that. And I thought that was a really good perspective in explaining what happened. And if they had just left it there, I think that would have been fine. Like, once you're in a funeral mass, there's a certain extent to which you are, like most of the time it's just going to be the priest doing whatever he normally does, following the liturgy as is.
Yeah.
But like you are also like, you are kind of beholden to people who are grieving.
Yeah.
And like, they're going to do what they're going to do. You also may be up against like different cultural interpretations of Catholic worship. So like some of the things that were in there, you know, are things that might actually happen in some way in like Catholic churches that are just, you know, represented by different ethnic minorities or just different ethnic groups in general. Like, you know, more of a raucous, more of a quote unquote raucous sort of atmosphere. So like, as a celebrant of a funeral mass, you might be in a position where you have to acquiesce a little bit to the different interpretation that might already be there for the mass. Now, that said, like this was a group of people that probably didn't go to mass very often because the church has, you know, in so many, even though they haven't explicitly said you're not welcome, in so many actions and words, they have said like, don't show up here. So that is a little bit different, but I think you have to roll with it at a certain point. Like a baptized Catholic is obligated to a Catholic funeral mass, and crap's going to happen when people are mourning, and you got to let it happen.
Gumby, you want to see a clip?
Turning now to the funeral fallout stemming from a funeral mass that was held for transgender activist Cecilia Gentili at St. Patrick's Cathedral last week.
Well, now the Archdiocese is condemning her funeral, saying that they were deceived into hosting the service. Fox 8's Ashley Rodriguez has the latest on the controversy.
The funeral started out as most St. Patrick's Cathedral parishioners would expect one to. But outrage would soon fester from the services held for 52-year-old Cecilia Gentili, a trans woman, an advocate for sex workers, and an outspoken atheist.
Thank you, Lord.
Gay actor and singer Billy Porter, who worked with Gentili on the FX television hit series Pose, sang at the services, followed by speakers whose attire and words left old-school Catholics watching by live stream stunned, as some of the mourners used inappropriate language in the eulogy, including a derogatory word for prostitute, over and over again. While the audience, packed with fellow trans and LGBTQ members and allies, roared in delight at the humor, members of the church balked. Bill Donahue from the more conservative Catholic League writing, "Men dressed as women and women dressed as men. At the service, many of those in attendance dressed as hookers, danced in the aisles, sang Ave Cecilia when Ave Maria was sung."
Ave Maria.
When parishioners heard about the service, they wanted to know how St. Patrick's could let this happen. We reached out, and Rector Enrique Salvo sent us a statement. Thanks to so many who have let us know they share our outrage over the scandalous behavior at a funeral here at St. Patrick's Cathedral earlier this week. The cathedral only knew that family and friends were requesting a funeral mass for a Catholic and had no idea our welcome and prayer would be degraded in such a sacrilegious and deceptive way.
I feel like for a place that is really traditional, it might be a little bit too much.
Even though like I'm part of the LGBTQ, I don't think it's like the right place for it, you know, especially like a place where it's like very like safe and respected for other people.
Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, authorized a mass of reparation, while the rector requests prayer as the event happened during Lent. Ashley Rodriguez,
Cecilia!
Fox 5 News.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow is all I can say.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So that's why there was a little bit of, let's say, discombobulation.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a big to-do, big outburst. And honestly, I do think it was a little over the top.
A little bit?
Right?
But what if, entertain me, or humor me for a second here. What if the Catholic Church had been like, funeral masses for everybody. We take care of everybody in this crucial transition from life unto new life or death or whatever. And we have no further comment because that was our job and we did our job. What kind of world would that be like? I can't help but think the fruit of that would be good for you to be, hey, you parishioners who emailed us or whatever, or outraged online, like, this is what we do. No exceptions. Sometimes it gets messy, but we don't shirk from this duty.
Okay, but shouldn't there still be some sanctity in an area that's used for church worship, though? I would push back that on a little bit. I'd say if you're going to attend, there should be some form of solemn reverence. There should be some sanctity. There should be some decorum.
What if what they were doing was more reverent than what we normally do? Like, for someone to be the mother of horrors, to be someone who ministered to this ostracized person, like, is not the Blessed Mother the mother of horrors in a sense, in that she watches over and nurtures those who are in this lowly position in this world?
Yeah, she absolutely does try. However, we are to also talk about a staunch atheist as well. So there is a separation right there. There's definitely a difference, you know.
But once you're
ideologies.
baptized a Catholic, you're a Catholic no matter what you say your philosophy is, right? Right?
I would disagree with that. It's like saying, I'm an American. I only work for the Nazis.
But I've read before that you can't even like renounce your Catholic faith short of like writing to the bishop and having them accept it. Like, you don't actually have an option as a Catholic in a practical sense to just say, I'm not a Catholic.
But there still should be a decorum. So there's a difference between having a funeral for somebody and having decorum in a sacred place. There is definitely a difference.
But what is decorum but enforced heteronormativity? Like, decorum inherently excludes ostracized people.
No. No.
I am at a loss for words.
No.
It doesn't matter what my background is.
No. They're just no.
But so independent of that mass, though, would we not agree that decorum has often been used as an excuse to exclude people that the group in power would otherwise want to
I
exclude?
wouldn't argue that.
I think independent of that, what was her name? Cecilia?
Yeah.
Absolutely deserves respect.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
right to her final
Yeah.
transition in life that we'll all face one day. No doubt about that. She deserves and we should expect some kind of sanctity for her life.
I agree.
That was just activism.
Exactly. And that's what, so there's a difference between celebrating a life and shoving your ego in the face and saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And that's what a lot of them were doing was there's no reason for you to run up and down the aisle unless you're saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm sorry, but that's all ego. That's nothing to do with celebrating somebody's life as they've passed away.
I'm going to try one more time. Is there no greater way to eulogize an activist but by participating in activism?
No, that's ego. That was just straight up ego. In fact, I would say that was the id, right? Because ego is just the acknowledgement of self, whereas the id is the over-exemplification of ego. So, to put it in Freud's terms.
Quite honestly, any independent funeral home wouldn't care. Go out and get a private funeral home.
Yeah.
A very huge one and have a parade.
Yeah.
Your money, you bought it, they wouldn't care. But the fact that you did in that, it's just, it's provocation. It's just a final slap in the face.
Yeah.
Like, haha, I get the last one.
It's less about celebrating somebody's life and more about, look at me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I said, like, to celebrate the life of someone whose nature was to provocate.
So
can you not do it? Can you do it any other way than by provocating?
Yeah. Outside of a place that causes that kind of problem.
But that wouldn't be provocating.
Outside of a place that causes that kind of problem.
If you don't cause a problem, you're not provocating.
Well, but here's the problem. Instead of creating a conciliar idea, bridging gaps, helping people, now all you've done is created more of a bane on yourself. So you haven't helped anything. You've only made yourself look like you should be more ostracized. So it doesn't actually help. It actually dirties the image.
For me, when I see that, it just reeks of immaturity and a bit of annoyance because it'd be like, let's say at the last funeral I went to, that was a Catholic funeral. If all they did was promote the fact that he was a Republican, military, and everything was just solely about that. And they made his whole life just about that when it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with that. Like that wasn't, the entirety of his life.
Yeah.
I would argue that every message that in the long run has been proven to be like, this was necessary. This was what actually like bridged the divide at the time was argued as needless provocation. I think even like there'll be some political comics you'll see from the time of Martin Luther King that'll be like, oh, this guy is just like causing trouble, getting people thrown in jail. And like, what do we think of him today?
I actually don't have a ton of respect for Martin Luther, honestly.
I thought Martin Luther King.
Oh, okay. Totally different Martin Luther. Totally different Martin Luther. Okay.
I wanted to save you there.
Okay. Totally different Martin Luther.
Better back up there, buddy.
I thought for sure you're talking about Martin Luther, though. Okay. No, Martin Luther King Jr. I love. Okay. I thought for sure you're talking about the church divide, centuries ago.
Yeah. Well, you remember those have you seen those comics where they're like, here you like this guy is I'm trying to remember exactly what they were, but like they were highly critical of actions that we now consider part and parcel of the civil rights movement, like that the civil rights movement could not happen without the civil disobedience that the powers and principalities at the time that said was terrible and unnecessary and sacrilegious and disrespectful.
And yet Martin Luther would have never done anything like that.
Martin Luther King.
King.
But would he?
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
Nope. He was actually very respectful. Even in the face of his opponents, he was still respectful. He still had decorum. So, because that's how you bridge gaps. You don't create peace and equality through slapping people in the face. You create peace and equality by breeding respect. By giving respect, you get respect. You don't do it by slapping people in the face.
Join us in part 2 for the rest of the conversation.